boys and girls, from me, Henry, and Nipper. Now if you like the video, don't forget to press the like button, hit the subscribe and ring the bell. This will ensure you are the first to know when I, Henry, and Nipper releases a new video. And don't forget, it costs you nothing to subscribe. Now are we snuggled in then? Then we shall begin. Tonight's story is called The Wise Little Girl. The story of a little girl who was very, very wise indeed, that the emperor proclaimed, only in my kingdom could such a wise little girl be born. Once upon a time, in the immense Russian wilderness, lay a little village where nearly all the inhabitants bred horses. It was the month of October, when a big livestock market was held yearly in the main town. Two brothers, one was rich and the other one was poor, set off for the market. The rich man rode a stallion and the poor brother rode a young mare. At dusk they stepped inside an empty house and tethered their horses outside, before going to sleep themselves on 2 heaps of straw. Great was their surprise when the next morning, when they saw 3 horses outside instead of 2. Well, to be exact, the newcomer was not really a horse, it was a foal, to which the mare had given birth during the night. Soon it had the strength to struggle to its feet, and after a drink of its mother's milk, the foal staggered its first few steps. The stallion greeted it with a cheerful whinny, and when the stallion greeted with a cheerful whinny, the 2 brothers set eyes upon it for the first time. The foal was standing beside the stallion. "It belongs to me," exclaimed Dimitri, the rich brother, the minute he saw it. "It's my stallion's foal, Ivan," the poor brother began to laugh. "Whoever heard of a stallion having a foal? It was born to a mare." "No, that's not true. It was standing close to the stallion, so it's the stallion's foal, and therefore it's mine." The brothers started to quarrel. Then they decided to go to town and bring the matter before the judges. Still arguing, they headed for the big square where the courtroom stood. But what they did not know was it was a special day. The day when, once a year, the emperor himself administrated the law. He himself received all who came to seek justice. The brothers were ushered into his presence, and they told him all about the dispute. Of course, the emperor knew exactly who was the owner of the foal. He was on the point of proclaiming in the favour of the poor brother, when suddenly Ivan developed an unfortunate twitch in his eye. The emperor was greatly annoyed by his familiarity by a humble peasant, and decided to punish Ivan for his disrespect. After listening to both sides of the story, he declared it was very difficult, indeed impossible, to say exactly who was the foal's rightful owner. And being in the mood for a spot of fun, and since he loved posing riddles and solving them as well, to the amusement of his counsellors, he exclaimed, "I can't judge which of you should have the foal, so it will be awarded to whichever of you solves the following 4 riddles. What is the fastest thing in the world? What is the fattest? What's the softest? And what is the most precious?" I command you to return to the palace in a week's time with your answers. Dmitri started to puzzle over the answers as soon as he left the courtroom. When he reached home, however, he realised he had nobody to help him. Well, I'll just have to seek help, for I can't solve these riddles. I lose the fool. Then he remembered a woman, one of his neighbours, to whom he had once lent a silver ducat. That had been some time ago, and with the interest, the neighbour now owed him 3 ducats. And since she had a reputation for being quick-witted, but alas very astute, she decided to ask her advice in exchange for cancelling part of her debt. But the woman was not slow to show how astute she really was, and promptly demanded that the whole debt be wiped out in exchange for the answers. The fastest thing in the world is my husband's bay horse, she said. Nothing can beat it. The fattest is our pig. Such a huge beast has never been seen. The softest is the quilt I made for the bed, using my own goose's feathers. It's the envy of all my friends. The most precious thing in the world is my 3-month-old nephew. There isn't a more handsome child. I wouldn't exchange him for all the gold on earth, and that makes him the most precious thing on earth. Dmitri was rather doubtful about the woman's answers being correct. On the other hand, he had to take some kind of solution back to the emperor, and he guessed quite rightly that if he didn't, he would be punished. In the meantime, Ivan, who was a widower, had gone back to the humble cottage where he lived with his small daughter, only 7-year-old. The little girl was often left alone, and as a result was thoughtful and very clever for her age. The poor man took this little girl into his confidence, for like his brother, he knew he would never be able to find the answers by himself. The child sat in silence for a moment, then finally said, "Tell the emperor that the fastest thing in the world is the cold north wind in winter. The fattest is the soil on the fields, whose crops give life to men and animals alike. The softest thing is a child's caress, and the most precious is honesty." The day came when the 2 brothers were to return before the emperor. They were led into his presence. The emperor was curious to hear what they had to say, but he roared with laughter at Dmitri's foolish answers. However, when it was Ivan's turn to speak, a frown spread over the emperor's face. The poor brother's wise replies made him squirm, especially the last one about honesty. The most precious thing of all the emperor knew perfectly well was that he'd been dishonest in his dealings with the poor brother, for he had denied him justice. But he could not bear to admit it in front of his own councillors, so he angrily demanded, "Who gave you these answers?" Ivan told the emperor that it was his small daughter. Still annoyed, the great man said, "You shall be rewarded for having such a wise and clever daughter. You shall be awarded the foal that your brother claimed, together with 100 silver ducats. But, and the emperor winked at his councillors, "you will come before me in 7 days' time bringing your daughter, and since she is so clever, she must appear before me neither naked nor dressed, neither on foot nor horseback, neither bearing gifts nor empty-handed. And if she does this, you will have your reward. If not, you'll have your head chopped off for your impudence." Hoo-hoo! The onlookers began to laugh, knowing that the poor man would never be able to fulfill the emperor's conditions. Ivan went home in despair. His eyes were brimming with tears. But when he told his daughter what had happened, she calmly said, "Tomorrow go and catch a hare and a partridge. Both must be alive. You have the foal and the 100 silver ducats. Leave it to me. Ivan did as his daughter said. He had no idea that the two creatures were for, but he trusted his daughter's wisdom. On the day of the audition with the emperor, the palace was thronging with bystanders waiting for Ivan and his small daughter to arrive. At last the little girl appeared, draped in a fishing net, riding the hare and holding the partridge in her hand. She was neither naked nor dressed, on foot or on horseback. Scowling, the emperor told her, I said neither bearing gifts nor empty-handed. At these words the little girl handed out the partridge. The emperor stretched out his hand to grasp it, but the bird floated into the air. The third condition had been fulfilled. In spite of himself, the emperor could not help but admire the little girl who had so cleverly passed such a test, and in his gentler voice he said, Is your father terribly poor, and does he desperately need the foal? Oh yes, replied the little girl. We live on the hares he catches in the rivers, and the fish he picks from the trees. Aha, cried the emperor triumphantly. So you're not as clever as you seem to be. Who ever heard of hares in the river and fish in the trees? To which the little girl swiftly replied, And whoever heard of a stallion having a foal? At that, both the emperor and the court burst into peals of laughter. Ivan was immediately given his 100 silver ducats, and the foal and the emperor proclaimed, Only in my kingdom could such a wise little girl be born. Well, wasn't that a lovely story, boys and girls? So, nighty-night, children. Nighty-night. Nighty-night.